Recently, while driving alone on a long ride between Arizona and Oklahoma, I made the connection between two stories that I hadn't made before. The first one was a dream that happened in the 1970s. The other took place 10 years later. It happened when I looked up and I saw the blue shield in the sky. In the dream, something appeared in an empty space. The space looked like white sky with thin, loose clouds. They barely moved. The thing that appeared was in the center. It was small with emptiness all around, and it was hard to make out. Finally, it became really clear. It was a tiny buffalo facing me, standing way off in the distance. It was maybe this tall. All around it was white, cloudy, moving space. For a while, the buffalo just stood there, not moving. Then it became a little larger, but still didn't move. And then I saw there was something on its right side. It looked like a shield, or what our people would call a medallion. The buffalo slowly started moving toward me. It didn't have the medallion then. It kept coming closer and closer. A buffalo has its own kind of gait, you know. Then it became larger than me, still walking straight at me. It became huge and ran right over me. It ran right through me. I felt the contact. Something happened. Seemed like I was hit. I lost track of time. I lost track of myself. The next thing I knew, I was in a dim place, dark and reddish, laying on the ground, but I didn't know where. I sat up and looked around. I sat cross-legged. It was a cave, a high, large cavern wrapped around me, but not all of it was clear. I sat really still. I noticed a rhythmic, soft thumping far away. I thought of a drum. Each thump had a slight echo. Looking up, beams stretched around me, curving down the sides of the cavern. I was a tiny thing sitting in there, the size of a bug. Then came lots of sounds, dripping, rolling thunder, steamy air, trickling water and gurgling. The cave I was in vibrated, tilted, and swayed. I looked up at the stripes overhead. The beams that made up the cavern walls stretched and twisted many times. Creaking sounds grew really loud. It was terrifying, especially the rolling thunder. It sounded like an unknown rumbling deep inside the cave, deeper than where I sat. It sounded like a giant who was coughing. Next came a great heaving, throwing me off the ground into the air. I was tossed and thrown around inside the cavern like a rag doll. I hit the ground again. The cave still twisted and moved violently, and by some unknown force, I was pushed along a passage by the twists and heaving inside the cave. I was turned upside down and rolled around. Then suddenly I plopped out of the buffalo's mouth. I fell on the ground in front of it. I was a buffalo calf, soft and yellow, staring at the big buffalo that coughed me out. That was the end of the dream. In the 1980s, I was traveling a great deal. I stopped at a buffalo range where I'd been before. It was late spring, and I arrived about 7 in the morning. The small buffalo herd was meandering in the distance. I took a small blanket out of my car and sat on the ground to say a small prayer. No one was around. The sun was slowly moving up. The buffalo stayed in the distance. I began my prayer. I talked to the morning, to the sun, to the grass, and everything that was there. Suddenly, I heard a baby cry. I paused, opened my eyes. There were no cars, no people, only the sun and miles of grassy hills. The herd came closer. Some of them had blackbirds on their backs. I closed my eyes and took up my prayer again. There it came again, a baby cry, very human sounding. I stopped, listened, then I concluded my prayer. I opened my eyes. A female buffalo stood nearby, and with it was her calf. I sat unable to move, watching, listening. Eventually, another car drove up the road. Quickly I got up and put my blanket in the car. Checking the time, it was well over an hour that I was there, but it seemed like only a few minutes. I wanted to share these two stories in remembrance of our grandmas and grandpas who knew a lot about dreams, visions, and roads we take. They showed us how to know the world in their way. They told us that our lives and the world we live in are mysterious. They told us to love these things and to take care of them. That's their gift to us, their knowledge. As for my two stories, the end to them hasn't come yet. I just told the beginning.